Okay, so just doing another quick video here about an asset pack that I'm going to be putting into the Horizons Worlds public assets. This one is just a simple fire in the hole explosives asset pack. So I'll start by just showing how it works. So this is it. I've actually got to create a floor plane still for this, but I'll do that just to make sure it's all stays on the plane. But yeah, so fire in the hole explosives. I'll just go through it pretty quickly and then go into the editor and kind of show you. Let me just make this a bit bigger to begin with. Can I do that? Why can't I do that? I'll close this. The AI gen. Let's do that. That will do for now. So yeah, basically you've got select your explosive, throw it into the area in front, and the order of power from green to red, showing the most powerful. So I haven't labeled these, but hopefully it's pretty obvious which is which. And this just shows you how you can adjust the object. So selecting the object in the hierarchy and then over to the properties panel at the bottom, you'll see the properties you can change, which in this case, I'll go over it in a bit, but you can just see it there. And then we've got a reset button here. This just kind of goes over how you can change things if you want to remix it. So basic, simple ways being changing the objects. So I'm a big fan of Worms Armageddon, can't speak right now. So the banana bomb's an idea, or the holy hand grenade. So you could change the models within these groups to do that and kind of change the strength as well. And then also the cubes. So we've got the cubes colored here to show that they're different properties. So you've got sort of changing the drag on the cubes, so the way the explosions affect them. And this kind of goes into that there. But we'll start throwing these in, and then we'll go into the editor afterwards to have a look at it. So there you go. Throw a grenade. Let's see what it does. There we go. Hopefully it's not too loud. So you can see that's had an effect, but the blast area is kind of relatively low on that. So if I throw a bit of dynamite in, the blast area is a little bit more on this, and the power is a little bit more. And then we've got the bundle. I'm going to throw the bundle over here. Oh, okay, we've gone central. But again, blast area is a bit better. Louder bang as well. And then the C4 is the one you kind of want to cover your ears for, or turn your volume down for. It's a bit louder. And a bigger blast area. So notice these all kind of respawn back to this position. That's just in the explosion script that they have on each of them. And so there's also a within that script as well, there's kind of the you have the option to change the objects, the tag for the objects that you want to react to it. So I've got it set as reactive, so all the cubes are there. And then we got the reset button here, which, oh, okay, well they're dynamic, so occasionally they'll do weird stuff. Okay, so if I go back into the editor, so if I come back in here, annoyingly, I've got these, I don't even know how to remove these at the moment, but these giant, like, they're called firework trail and explosion, but it can be renamed. But basically, they're just kind of in the way of the objects on the table here. You can see if I go through them, everything's kind of in the way. But yeah, so basically, most of the things we're going to be looking at are going to be over in the hierarchy and then in the properties anyway. So we shouldn't have to see the individual objects, but just know that they're there for now. So if we start with the grenade, so if I click on that, you can faintly see it there. So this has the explosion controller. It's got firework in it still, even though it's just called an explosion controller. But this all came out of an experiment with making a firework and then ended up just making grenades and stuff. So that's why it's got firework in there a lot. But again, you can change the names of these. You can also change the trail effect, change the explosion effect by dragging and dropping. And positioning them like over. So all of these are just positioned over the actual objects themselves. And sorry, I'm having my coffee if you hear me sipping. But so that's why some of these are bigger, is because the smoke effect needs to be bigger when they explode to kind of represent the bigger explosion radius. But yeah, so if I click on the grenade, if we scroll down, so as I said, you've got launch force, flight time, and unpredictability. These you can play around with, but they were intended for the firework. So, for example, the launch force at 2 just helps like improve the throw maybe a bit. So it's a bit easier to throw. But if you put that up to like 5 or 6 or whatever, like a higher number, you'll notice it just keeps traveling like a firework would. So that, again, if you wanted to use it for fireworks or something, you could play around with that. Flight time is that time before it kind of explodes. before it detonates. And so you can play around with that. There's also probably, you'd have to edit yourself. I haven't allowed for the ability to cook the grenades or cook the explosives, which you could probably do, but I haven't done it with this one. And unpredictability is sort of the way it moves when you throw it. So I don't know if launch vector is the correct term for that. I don't know. But so for example, if you're throwing a weird shaped object or something like a firework, for example, if that's higher, like a 5 or something, then when you throw it, it's not going to necessarily travel in a straight line. It'll move around a bit. So I just leave that for these settings. I wouldn't play around with them if you're using it for the same use case I am here. But yep, as I said, you can change trail effect, change explosion effect, and change the sound effect. And then you've got the radius here. These are the main ones: radius, explosion force, and the tag. So as I said, all the cubes are tagged. If I click on one, reactive and respawn, but that's for the respawn script, which is separate. So that's what's triggering sort of all the cubes to react to the explosion. But if we go back to the grenade on the left side here and go down again, you can see, yeah, so you can change these. And that's what I've done. When I switch to the dynamite stick, you will see explosion radius 6, explosion force 22. Yeah, so it's just slightly up because I actually had it higher at like 8 and like 25, but the dynamite stick seemed way overpowered for some reason, so I just was playing around with them. And then again, dynamite bundle, the radius of the explosion is up to 10 and the explosion force is 35. And then finally 20 and 60 for the C4. And all these have inside them, as I said, if you've got a trail, if you want to change any of these, the explosion, the trail of the line that comes behind the item when you throw it, or the sound, just make sure you drag them within these groups, right? So if you're doing I don't know what else you could do this for, but anything you can think of, like a banana bomb or highly hand grenade, and you want it to make a weird, silly sound or have a different explosion effect, then just drag and drop it in here. And make sure that once you've done that, make sure you plug them in here as well, because it's not enough to just drag and drop them in the group. You have to drag them from the hierarchy into the correct position on these. And obviously, as I said, you can do that for each one. So just make sure you're selecting the correct one when you drag and drop the different effects in there. So I'll just do it as an example. It's already on there for this one, but like you're literally just doing that for that. And if it's a different one, it'll change it. And I'm sure you can also do it from the button here. If you click on it, it will give the option of all the ones in scene. But I find it easier just to drag and drop. Yeah, so that's basically everything with the explosives. And hopefully you get an idea from that of how you could quite easily just change it to whatever explosives you would want. And you could probably even do like a smoke grenade with the same thing, and then just change it to a smoke sound that lasts longer. And then you want an effect, some kind of smoke effect that lasts longer as well. So the smoke effect that's currently on there probably wouldn't be ideal, but maybe there's a way or one that you can find that lasts longer, so you could do a smoke grenade as well. Interesting to test if that actually conceals players. That would be quite cool. But yeah, that's all the explosives. And again, the kind of secondary stuff in here is more the cube materials, which I mentioned. So I've tried changing the materials. So you can see on some of these it says metal, and like their mass is set to 10. But I just kind of gave up on that because it didn't seem to have an effect, like much of an effect on the amount of explosive force that was needed, but the drag did. So that's why I've said drag set to 0.5. And again, just playing around with these, I'm sure there's other ways you can do it. But I wasn't too concerned about changing the physics material, just upping the drag. And the same with the wood ones are slightly less, so 0.2. And then we've got these ones with just 0 on the drag. And same as the default cubes, because I didn't do anything with those. They were just set to 0. But these are just, because they're rubber ball, they just bounce a bit. So depending on your use case, it might be interesting to have a rubber ball effect on some of them. But you can see in the hierarchy, sorry if I'm speaking fast, that's my second coffee kicking in. I've kind of just broke it down into, you've got your environment, which is the table, the front, you've got the range walls here, and if I close that, that's everything there. Then you've got the reset button. So the reset button is just God, I should probably just turn this off, shouldn't I? Can I just hide these? There must be a way to hide these. I just haven't played around with it enough yet. Show gizmos. There you go. Okay, there you go. That's much better. Gizmos are turned off. Yeah, so the reset button, as I said, we've got there. It's just a trigger that's there, and then text that I put there, reset, and then this is just a, what is this? Where did I put this model? Oh, that's just this. I put the trigger and the text within this model object, which is the reset button. Probably a cleaner way to do it, but that is how I've done it. And then so that basically just on the trigger just has the script on it there for the reset manager. But again, that might be something you'd have use with as well. Just have a simple reset button. And to point out, because this confused me, and I actually asked in the Discord about this. I couldn't understand how I could create a trigger that people could press without grabbing and running away with. And it's actually just this selectable in screen mode setting and then changing the interaction prompt to use on the trigger. So trigger by players, selectable in screen mode, right? That tick box is the main thing. And to me, that's not intuitive because that didn't mean that doesn't mean to me interaction, without making something grabbable, right? Interactive but not grabbable. And so that threw me off until one of the mentors kindly mentioned how to fix that, or how to make that happen, which is just this button to create the interactable but not grabbable button, basically. And then you can control the distance, the range of which it triggers. So right now you can see it's not triggering until I get to there, but you can have that even closer so people aren't pressing it accidentally when they're trying to grab an object. All right, I'm having fun with this, so I'll just play around with it. So you see as well the delay when you have like a much higher explosion force. Like by default, it was originally bringing in at 500 with the explosive force, and for reference, that's now down to 60. And there's still a bit of lag. So yeah, you can play around with that to kind of do that, and also be warned that the more sort of dynamic objects you're going to have in your space, the more issues like that you might have. So that's where the importance of not only a reset trigger, but like a trigger area that sort of automatically resets the cubes when they go outside of a certain area, or just resets them over a time period, so that you don't have loads of dynamic objects constantly flying around your world, because that's one very quick way to crash your world, I imagine. But hey, we'll push the platform to its limits and see what it can do. But yeah, that's basically everything I think I covered in this. This asset kit is going to be public. Currently the competition's on, so I'm going to enter it in, but it will be public after that anyway. And yeah, I think I've covered everything in here. Yeah, you've just got the instruction graphics separate, different cubes, different objects, so you can change their properties. And then these are just texts that I've got in there at the bottom. So this will be in one kit together. All right, thanks for watching. Hopefully you get some use out of this and have fun remixing it.